want it enforced and are resisting its enforcement. That being so, the orderly thing to do under our form of government is to abolish a law which cannot be enforced, a law which the people of the country do not want enforced. Prohibition cannot be enforced for the simple reason that the majority of American people do not want it enforced and are resisting its enforcement. That being so, the orderly thing to do under our form of government is to abolish a law which cannot be enforced, a law which the people of the country do not want enforced.
And we are back for another edition of the Kent and Zach Show with Caitlyn Guthrie. It is July 20th, Wednesday evening at 8:04 p.m., and we are so glad you are here and joining us for our very first episode of the Kent and Zach Show with Caitlyn Guthrie. The Caitlyn and Zach Show with Caitlyn Guthrie, where we are recording live from KCDI Studios. This is the Kent and Zach Show, blasting anyone who makes us angry. We bring critical thinking, skepticism, and ridicule to anything that makes the news or our purview. It's political, it's skeptical, it's triggering, and we are not holding anything back.
Welcome to the Kent and Zach Show, or the CKZ Show when I'm chilling. I'm your host, Caitlyn Guthrie.
And I'm Zach Worth. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. I've got to say, I cannot believe the response we got from the very first episode.
Crazy.
I thought we were going to do a quick little podcast, have some fun, get some rants out there. Maybe one or two of our family and friends would watch it. No, you guys took it. You ran with it. So it's official. We're right here Wednesdays at 8. So don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about it. We're going to stick to local, state, things that apply to everyday life here in Garden City. How's everybody doing tonight?
Fantastic. It's been such a busy week for us here at the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It
took a little bit to get this going for sure.
It did. Like Zach was saying, we thought this was just going to be maybe a one-off and have a few people on board to watch us. And we went coast to coast. We had people from all over the country send us messages. People in Lawrence, Manhattan, Wichita, checked out the show. So we're blown away by everybody's response to this. So we threw together an intro. We went from just me and Zach running this show to there's five of us now.
5 sounds right.
5 of us now. We've got 2 guys in the background running production. If you guys would love to comment along with the show, please do so in the chat link on Facebook. We are live on YouTube, so you can throw us up on a big screen. You can find the link to that on our Facebook page. And we're also on Twitch, and we'll be on Twitter here soon. It's on my personal page if you have me on Twitter, if that's your thing. You can find it there on Twitter tonight. But holy moly, we got Zach a microphone. We got Caitlyn brought up. We got her a microphone going. Caitlyn, how's your experience been this first week?
It's been a lot of fun. Pretty busy doing the research and the practice.
Yep. None of us are lawyers or politicians or teachers or anything. We're just three average people, talking politics about, how they
Usually.
affect us and how we see it. Mainstream media these days is hard to get a view that's not talking point or scripted or, just straight out propaganda. So here we are. And like Zach said, we're going to focus a lot on Garden City in Kansas. We'll talk national news too when it catches our purview. So tonight, Caitlyn, what's on the show?
So tonight we're going to discuss Laura Kelly and cannabis and foster care failures, some campaign propaganda history, value them both, and a Laurie Chrisman audio. I have a fly if I do this randomly. That's what's going to leading us. Leading us off is Kent with events coming up in Garden City.
So this weekend, the Finney County Fair is in full swing with several events beginning today, running through Saturday, July 23rd. Lots of fun to do, lots of fun stuff to do and see. There's livestock concerts featuring Heartland Dueling Pianos, Phil Vandal, turtle races. I mean, you got to see turtle races. Touch a truck and more, which is a lot of like fire trucks, implements, tractors, combines, lots of really big, cool stuff down there for kids to see it. One of the events I look forward to most every year is this Saturday at 2:30. The Finney County Fair hosts a watermelon eating contest, rather, at the Finney County Fairgrounds. Kids and adults alike can enter in the contest. Kids can eat. If they win, they can win up to $100. Adults, $250. The event is sponsored by John Ross and Co. Signature Catering, and I don't know if you've ever had their food, but John Ross is absolutely amazing. So check that out this weekend on Friday.
And this Saturday, Finney County Preservation Alliance hosts the Windsor Hotel Tours. You can tour the historic Windsor Hotel located at 413 Main Street at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. this Saturday. Admission is $10 per person.
Shout out to Tessa Blood on the photo.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Cool off this Friday from 8:30 to 10 p.m. at Garden Rapids at the Big Pool for a special event, Adult Night at Garden Rapids. Admission is $5 per person. Concessions and beer will be available. Rent a cabana and bring the whole gang down for a swim under the lights. Should be fun. We've had it has not been getting very cool at night, so I can't think of a better time for them to have scheduled that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a great time. Also, this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., Garden City Arts hosts Drop By Art Saturdays. You can stop by Garden City Arts, located at 318 North Main Street in downtown Garden City. Pick up an art bag, which is set outside. It's got all the material outside the gallery's front door. That is, it's got all sorts of materials for an art project for you, an adult, a kid, anybody really. This week's focus is on, and I'm going to butcher this, Uluru watercolor. The event is free for all. It's first come, first serve. Again, they just throw bags out the front door and go by, pick them up, and have a good time. Share what you do with the Garden City Arts on Facebook.
We do that a lot. It is a good time.
It is. I think it's every second and fourth Saturday of the month through the summer that they do that program, and more in the fall. But anyhow.
So back to school is gearing up, and this Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Garfield Early Childhood Center, USD 457, they will be handing out free backpacks and school supplies. Proof of qualification for free or reduced meals or SNAP program is required.
That's a great program. Stuff the bus has been going on around town too. So, I love seeing the community come together and help out those in need. Going back to Zach's comment about Tessa Blood, you are loved. Everybody has seen her tagline all over town. Today she goes to the high school here, Garden City High School, and was using styrofoam cups and the chain link fence to put in "You Are Loved," and they made one permanent. They put in an actual permanent "You Are Loved" sign in her honor, which is awesome. I love it. And yet we do want to thank her for the photo that we just saw there, and in our intro, actually, every still photo that you see there is Tessa Blood's work as well. So if you have any photography needs, please hit her up. You can find her on Facebook. She's a great gal, fun to work with. Smart, fun, and charming. But so moving the show along, We have Super Mad with Zach Wharf coming up. Zach, every week we'll have a topic that is stewing on his brain, and he's going to let us a little bit more about what's going on there today.
And, I've always got something that's just bugging me, and I just got to get it out. And what better way to do it here? I think a lot of people have the same thoughts. I just don't think most people are as openly willing to share them as I am. Fun name I picked was Super Mad because anybody that knows me knows that I'm a huge fan of all things super. And so Super Mad just seemed like the appropriate name for the. So this week I want to talk about Laura Kelly and the DNC. What are they doing? What have they done? She got axed the tax through, and we might feel some of that relief once she's long gone, because it sure isn't helping her win any re-election campaigns right now. Because axe the tax, if you don't know, it removes the sales tax on food, which Kansas has one of the highest sales tax rate on food, but they plan to incrementally lower it until it reaches zero. But that doesn't even start until next year, and the election's coming up, and I don't think anybody's going to see that relief and know that they did anything, unless you're like me and you just happen to follow politics super closely. One of Laura Kelly's campaign promises that I asked her personally about when she came to Garden City was what she intended to do about cannabis legislation in Kansas. And she said that she would sign any legislation that came to her desk, and she was absolutely for it. But I have not seen her take any steps at all to get cannabis legalization fulfilled for Kansans that desperately need it. I can hear you Dems filling my inbox already. Republicans won't let them push anything through. And I call bullshit because Laura Kelly signed legislation that would allow Kansans to be prescribed medication derived from cannabis-related products and active ingredients found in cannabis, providing the drug is approved by the FDA. This is the same FDA that approved the drug fentanyl, which has had a 43% jump in overdose deaths in Kansas in the last year. That's the second highest jump in the United States, seconded only by Alaska, which is having a serious epidemic out there. And so we're not willing to give any kind of pain relief to Kansans that are on cancer or dealing with a litany of issues that are scientifically at this point proven to help Kansans. But we just let somebody like Ty Masterson stop everything from even being discussed. I'm on the board for Kansas Normal, and I've been there for about 4 years now. And we've put through multiple bills, and every year we hear this is the year we're going to put it through. We're going to put it through. And then there's just one person in the opposition that won't stand for it. One person, and it stops everything. And you know what? That's what Republicans do, is they obstruct. We're used to it. And if you don't know that they're going to do that, you haven't been paying attention. But what is the Democrats' counter plan to these issues? What is their plan to actually do something? Because in Kansas, we have no problem opening another liquor store. We have no problem having another drunk driver. In fact, we have so many drunk drivers that the people that in our legislature have been doing it. Gene Sulentrope led police on a chase up the wrong way on an exit ramp, and the only thing that happened to him was he was removed from some committees. We have such a problem in Kansas with issues like cannabis and it being continued to be this reefer madness, and I don't understand why we can't collectively move forward. We're losing millions of dollars out of this state every year to the states that border us that have implemented some kind of cannabis legalization. Guys, what do you think? Is this bugging you too? I can't be the only one.
No, we're one of 4 states left with
nothing. Yeah, nothing has changed.
Yeah, I thought it was 2. I thought we were down to 2 states.
Oh, well.
It changes every year. We're the only ones that don't change. And, we're supposed to, if you guys don't know me, you know that I was a part of the KDP for a long time. I was the chairman for the Finney County Democrats, and they were constantly bragging about putting forward the most progressive legislation Kansas has ever seen. And cannabis was always on there. Mm-hmm. Well, great. You're creating pamphlets and whatnot talking about what your agenda is going to be is all fine and dandy. But if it stops there, it's unimpressive at best.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, we create so many refugees out of Kansas for medical reasons. Kids having seizures. There's just a litany of medical reasons: depression, insomnia, stomach,
Anxiety.
letting people eat, cancer. Just so many different things that can be used. Medical cannabis can be used, and we're losing so many people, good people, to other states just around us right now. To escape our archaic legislation on cannabis. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Kansas needs money. We were bankrupt almost just a couple of years ago. I think they got the budget balanced finally, but millions of dollars in tax revenue. The state loses out every year. It's just absolutely.
And not only does the state lose out on it, it literally leaves Kansas permanently. Either they move to a state where they can access it, or they drive and go get it illegally anyway. Mm-hmm. And then, your high schooler wants to get it, and they go to some guy's basement, and he doesn't care how old he is. He doesn't care to look at his ID. He just sells it because he's making money. And so it's not like it doesn't exist out here. Open the newspaper and see how many arrests there are, and just imagine how many arrests there aren't. It's just asinine, and I'm just sick of it. And okay, so there's plenty of people who are going to say, well, Zach, that's just an issue that's personal to you because you're on the board for Kansas Normal. Okay, fine. What about Laura Kelly's other failings? I can do this all day. We don't have all day, but it was not hard to write this piece. What about our foster care system in Kansas? Put up that other graphic, that second graphic, guys. Our foster care system out here has just been Laura Kelly's promise. She said she would treat the system like an emergency. Put that back up. Yeah, right. Treat deficits like an emergency. Wants more social workers to help kids and families. Plans to emphasize family preservation. Would treat it like an emergency. So that was her big campaign promise. NBC News did an article this month, talking about how 3/4 of foster care children who went missing in 4 populous states, including Kansas as one of those 4, were not screened after they were found. They ran away. They were found, and so they're supposed to be screened to find out if they were victims of sex trafficking. Yeah, it's a federal law, and that doesn't happen in our state. Why would we allow this? Well, according to Brian Whitley, Health and Human Services Regional Inspector General, said his agency believes the foster care systems are underfunded and understaffed. These are particularly vulnerable children, and it's sad. And it's a sad state of affairs when our most vulnerable populations don't get the attention that they need. So it's not just I'm not a foster child. My children both live here. It's not but I know people who can tell you absolute horror stories that come from the foster care system. Exactly. Mike Newton says it's a cash crop.
It is.
Oh, I'm sorry. He's talking about cannabis, and absolutely.
They both are,
but yeah, the state is bringing in money, and we have people signing up to be foster parents that are just collecting the paychecks. They're not actually fostering a thriving environment to make sure that these kids don't grow up to put other kids into the system.
Here's my issue: is adoption. Everybody talks about how much we need to adopt. Especially right now with the Value in the Both amendment that's on the ballot August 2nd, which we'll get to later. But it's $70,000.
Yeah, do you guys know
to get a 9.5-year-old? If you want a newborn, you're going to pay $120,000 or more to get a newborn.
That's a whole conversation about the hierarchy of which children get to be adopted first, depending on age. Mm-hmm. There is race factor. There's a whole bunch of things going on there. I don't know if you guys have ever talked to an adoptee who's an adult now. I don't think enough people listen to their stories. Right. And I don't think that they have the ability to have that discussion because there's this duality of not wanting to hurt or cause pain to the parents that adopted them, but there's also this therapy that families are missing, that they're missing to go through the traumas of being, unwanted in the first place, or a trauma where they lost their parents, anything like that. Those are all conversations that they're trying to have, but I never see that stuff in the news.
Right.
And Mike Newton makes a great comment. Private entities like St. Francis make money for each kid in addition to federal and state grants.
Absolutely.
So we're literally just and St. Francis, that's obviously a Catholic group. These same Catholic groups are funding anti-abortion legislation.
Yeah. And it's just blowing my mind. And I think that's all you can access for adoption is through a Catholic service in the state of Kansas. I think they have a monopoly on adoption, if I'm not wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's pretty true. And
I'm not sure on the I'm not sure on the laws for Kansas regarding private adoptions.
Sure. Right. I mean, you have that option as well. But I mean, what's horrible for people out here in Western Kansas, all of Western Kansas, is it's a heck of a lot easier to adopt in a state next to us in Oklahoma and Colorado. And, so people from Western Kansas are going to other states to adopt. We can't even adopt Kansans that need to be adopted out of our own program because of the laws and regulations that we have set up are just so insane. This is a conversation for another show, and I do want to address it, but and we don't want to.
Well, just let me just sum up what I'm saying here. I'm not going to sit here and say that I think Laura Kelly isn't the best candidate for the job. She might very well be, but I've got to start seeing some accountability to these promises made. I'm absolutely tired of big campaign promises followed by short-term memory loss. They don't remember these huge promises, and then they're going to get up there and they're going to say they're going to do it again. Whether it's somebody local, an election like Laura Kelly saying that, I guarantee you she'll say that she's going to address this issue if we reelect her. But she had her chance and she didn't. Obama promised they would codify Roe. They had a super majority and they didn't even attempt to. I'm sick of the false campaign promises that they don't have any intention on even trying.
Right.
Unfortunately, those promises lead us down a path of fewer freedoms and get us closer to religious fascism. But again, like you say, Kent, that's for another segment.
It is. And Sarah Warfield,
my rant.
Yeah. Sarah Warfield made a comment too. Taking a child out of a loving home also creates trauma, and
we don't fund mental health in the state.
We were this close. I was like, I wasn't planning on telling the story, but I was this close going through a truancy case this year in the USD 457 arena, and that was really scary. The rhetoric in the forms for going through the court system for all of that is literally they can take your kid away if deemed so. And so I was freaking out about that part, and then just wondering, like, there were no behavioral issues there, it was not being present at the school, so they have all these they need to be present to graduate, all of those things. And I'm like, I don't know how it would help her in that situation if she was taken out of the home that she is cared for in.
It creates all sorts of trauma for that kid is what you're doing. By doing that, taking them out of their safe and loving environment, and putting them in a completely new situation. The numbers, statistics on foster kids aren't good, for abuse and many other things. There are several loving homes out there, but there are also several homes that, like Zach said earlier, they're just for the money of it and don't really care much about the kids at all. So we have got CPS has too much power to be able to tear families apart. And that's something that pisses me off right now with the parent rights crowd in schools, and what we're looking at tests and what they're being taught. You have no clue what can happen to you as soon as CPS comes knocking on your door, and it is scary. And and that's where we need to be directing our anger, in my opinion, towards parent rights. You know, what's going on at home, and you know, more so than in the classroom. But yeah, I mean, just absolutely.
Also, because of COVID, the court systems are very backed up, and so
Exactly.
that's, you know, you could be charged with something, or a situation can go through. Like, for instance, with the truancy case, we were still dealing with it in June after school was finished because of the delay of the.
Hey, listen, you know, if you're watching this show and you're a foster kid or a foster parent, have been adopted or looking to adopt, we'd love to hear your story. You could come on the show and visit with us in person, just like we're talking here and now, or you can reach out to us on Facebook Messenger, and we'd love to hear your story and talk about it and share it with other people to help support anybody that's going through the same thing. So, Caitlyn, it's your turn.
Yeah, so
focused on you. Campaign propaganda. Can you tell what's going on there? What's got you on your radar?
Speaking of fascism, let's talk about sort of the history of campaign propaganda. And so we've got to go back to the 30s and the 40s. And yes, I'm talking about World War II and Hitler's Germany. But I want to focus on the timing right before that, and how a few statesmen like brainwashed a whole ass population, which at the time was roughly 80 million people. And in 1940, only 8 million of those people were actually Hitler's, I'm going to butcher this, Wehrmacht. I don't speak German. So they were the defense power and the unified armed forces. And so how does 10% of the population turn into the Holocaust in such a short period of time? So sort of some not the shit they teach you in school here. And it may surprise you to find out that Hitler barely gets a mention in this one. So we're going to focus on a guy named Joseph Goebbels. And if I say Goebbels, I apologize, but it's Goebbels. One thing I find appropriate enough to note is that, much like politics today, even within the Nazi Party, a lot of people in power in their various states all had very different ideas about how to spread the ideology. There were some events that occurred because of these differences that helped escalate the timeline, like other power grabs from different states and different localities, blackmail affairs, scandals, all within the ranks of the Nazi Party. So it's important to know that Joseph was an educated philologist, which is that's got to do with linguistics, mostly oral and written text, the study of them, interpretation of those things. So he was working as a journalist and a private tutor, and he had a newspaper column which he was able to like highlight his growing anti-Semitism. So he was in the paper writing articles about his beliefs. In the 1920s, Hitler made a political power grab, and his subsequent trials were very highly televised. So everybody could see him a lot. And Goebbels began his interest in the Nazi Party some years later, volunteering under his district's party leader. And he found Hitler extremely charismatic and diligently committed to his beliefs. So Goebbels eventually works his way into a district party leader himself, and then eventually inherits the title of propaganda minister. So that was like his name, propaganda minister. And he was of the camp that thought that they should abruptly and blatantly express their anti-Semitism. So I just wanted to highlight how this guy was like uniquely educated and favorably aligned in his position, just heavily qualified to do that job. So let's go down the indoctrination highway of the Nazi Party. Goebbels begins seizing power of Germany's media. So he starts to make purchases, ownership of, is able to really grasp everything from, so at the time that was like radio, national and foreign press, film, art, music, and theater. So this guy gets to decide who's in the German films, what the films are about, what kind of programs go out over the air, smacking censorship on everything. And one key move during the rise of the Nazi Party was funding and producing enough radios so that every citizen of Germany had a radio in their home. And most of the workers were still suffering from the hardships of the last World War. So they didn't have radios and they didn't have time to enjoy German media. So when this happened, it was very novel and quite exciting to suddenly have access to that kind of programming. But Goebbels took it even a step further. He deployed nationalists to sweep the streets and actually like monitor and enforce the consumption of that programming. Mm-hmm. So they mass produced radios, handed them out to everybody, and then made sure, enforced that this programming was being ingested. So first, the programming was like, it mostly consisted of creating a sense of community. Everybody was, down on their luck, and so they wanted to just sort of like hype up this sense that we're all Germans and we're doing this. So the information was like innocuous or even positive in the beginning. And then it slowly started to creep into the nationalism territory when Goebbels made another key move. And I feel like I just said that, but I want to make sure we're getting the steps here. That he attempted a boycott of Jewish businesses. And so over the airwaves, he said, we're going to boycott Jewish businesses. And he sent police out to stand in front of those businesses and wouldn't allow patronage of other Germans. And at first, people weren't having it because they had like tailors that they had a suit ordered in. Or they had made to order goods from other Jewish retailers that they know and loved. So that was like a hit and miss for him. That was his first attempt to really drive that in there. But then, like in a short amount of time, the airway programming began turning more overt and outright blaming the Jewish population plight and giving people a scapegoat for their suffering. So you've got the Nazi Party purchasing control over enforcing propaganda in the country's media sources. And they make sure the propaganda is pro-Nazi and anti-Semitic. And they make sure every citizen owns a radio, that they're listening to those radios. And in just 2 short years, an entire perception was built upon how much power the Nazi Party possessed. So I want to sort of hopefully draw a parallel here where we're sort of in that arena. And so related to the value them both topic, I don't know if you've been watching the news. I know that right after this leak that happened from Roe v. Wade, it was like within 12 hours of us hearing that, we were getting hit up to like donate to the Democratic Party to save our rights. It was incredibly offensive. Sometimes I answer those things, like even if, just
nobody's looking.
Answer back, yeah.
Right.
And So, so regarding the Dobbs law, file that was submitted. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I mean, all I can think about is this last election. Listening to you talk about this and campaign propaganda and how crazy it's been for here in the United States. And it's completely new. It's completely different. It's all through social media. We posted up, COVID is getting started again. And, didn't leave a comment or an opinion or anything on it. Just, hey, there's an uptick again. Here's an article from Finney County Health, it's on an uptick. And as soon as we did that, we had a comment that, COVID was a hoax. And so we click on it on the person, and the person had one friend, and, we went through his activity, and that's all this profile was doing, was attacking people on pages and trying to rebuttal them or gaslight them into talking, that COVID is a hoax. And it's rampant. It is so crazy how many, we're a brand new page. In one article, we had somebody, a troll essentially is what what most people would call them on it. But it's crazy what and how they're doing it. And it's in everything. It's not just in our politics right now. It's in everything. And you got to be really careful on this information that you're taking in, because, all these algorithms are going to be set up to your Google searches and the stuff that you're viewing. And man, it's easy for those trolls. They're getting smart. They're going to feed all that stuff. Probably a bot. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, can be for sure. Yeah. So related. So we had this thing called the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, and so there was a an amendment procedure back in 2012. And so just to quote something here, the SMA established that via the Broadcasting Board of Governors, Voice of America, and Radio Free Europe, the U.S. State Department and Office of Public Affairs were authorized to disseminate propaganda to foreign affairs, but were strictly prohibited from releasing that same propaganda in America for public consumption. Put simply, our government was permitted to lie to the people in other countries, but not here to us at home. This prohibition was lifted in 2012 when the SMMA was signed into law by President Obama, allowing the same propaganda disseminated by our government to foreign publics to now be able to be released. It's legal. And yes, our government is also now allowed to create propaganda like specifically tailored for U.S. Public consumption and using any media as it sees fit, like social media, while remaining anonymous. This is the important part. While remaining anonymous as to the source of the material being reported. So they don't have to disclose their finances half the time. They don't have to tell us where that information is coming from.
Yeah. And you can see that same parallel in today's politics with dark money and anonymous donations to candidates and super PACs and the massive amounts of money that they pour into campaigns. It's always going to lead to fascism. That's the only direction it can go with that model.
Yeah. It's, I mean, thanks, Obama. I finally got to say it, you know. Thanks, Obama.
Like 2016, wasn't that a wild ride? I mean, and it's just escalated from there.
Yeah. I mean,
so it's easy to see if you're looking, but
yeah, but
Mike
I mean,
that's a stepping stone. That was definitely a stepping stone. But that's the whole thing is you don't boil a frog by dropping it in boiling water. You put a frog in water and then turn the heat on and it will boil itself. None of this, even January 6th, as dramatic as it wasn't a overnight build. Trump wasn't an overnight build. It started with the GOP, and before that, it was the pro-life movement of the early 90s, and we've been slowly coming to this, and all of a sudden we're looking around going, what happened? It's got to be Trump. Trump is a symptom of the greater problem. And just like Josh Bonwell says, both sides are guilty of gross negligence. They're pushing hatred. They're pushing up the hatred of the other side. At least an inability to come together to solve problems. He's right. As long as we are all bickering amongst each other, we are not looking at the problem, which is the money. It's the money, Lebowski. The money. It's always the money.
And I'd like to give a quick shout out to Josh Bonwell. Many people don't know this. He's my business partner. I mentioned KCDI Studios at the very beginning. It's Kaya Creative Digital Imagery, KCDI for short. Josh and I have partnered up on a lot of things, and he is a massive believer in me and has given lots of financial backing towards how we're broadcasting to you tonight. Computers, programs, microphones for people. Josh is a big help, and I, from the bottom of my heart, I want to say I love you, buddy. Thank you so much. But back to the show. Absolutely right. All social media sites, there's CI. Yeah, he's right. Blockchain, by Dart. Yeah, I mean that's
the best analogy. I heard the best analogy, and it went. Republicans are the mass shooter, and Democrats are the Uvalde police. And I cannot think of a better comparison. Yes, Republicans are hell-bent on taking these things away and bringing us to some kind of religious Taliban or whatever. Yeah. But they've been telling us they're going to do that for decades. And then we're just like, wait, what? They did what?
We are so complacent.
And Democrats are like, well, you got to give us some money so we can fight it. Come on, donate.
And that's the circus of every election, not just the national elections, but the midterms and then the primaries that each of the states do. It's every time that comes up, they've got to do something that's like, look over here. and then implement things behind. I mean, the Supreme Court has shadow dockets where they don't have to have oral argument. I'm pretty sure that's how this happened. To have those conversations in the public view. So then they like to release little nuggets of like, things like the Smith Modernization Act and then not televise it when that stuff happens, so they can just slide that stuff under the circus.
Yeah.
When you're watching the Johnny Depp trial, what's being passed in legislation? Why are they forcing us to give a shit about two celebrities that don't give a shit about you?
I don't give a shit. And I'm not to move us off topic, and I want to address this on another show at some time, but the January 6th trial is the same boat for me. All those guys, those people deserve to go to jail. They broke the law. We know that. I don't want to see it on TV. I don't need it being pushed down my throat every day. Do your jobs. And
at least be consistent. If you're going to put that one on TV, put everything on TV. Sure. Don't pick and choose what's in closed doors and not. But also, otherwise, it's political theater.
I mean, it is shocking because, it came out of the West Wing, is where all that was generated at. And that's shocking, and there's a lot to be talked about it, but we don't need to hear about it every day.
But that's the Democratic motive. We have nothing to offer you, so we'll tell you why the other side's bad.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That is.
Same bird, two wings.
I'm pretty sure there's statistics on how well that works.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to value them both.
Yeah. So in our next segment, we've got just to fire us off here. We have a 3-minute clip. It's an audio clip that was found on YouTube. It's a horrible audio clip, and we apologize for that up front. We didn't have time to get it edited up and professional as we'd like it to be. Probably wasn't a lot of hope for this clip anyway, but we are going to play it in its entirety. We want you guys to hear. And we're going to discuss what's on this audio tape. So we are going to be listening to Lori Chrisman, who's from Reno County. She is a representative of Value Them Both, and she oversees 18 different counties here in Kansas for the Value Them Both initiative. This audio is intriguing because it is the first time we've heard from Value Them Both and what their plans are after Value Them Both passes, should it on August 2nd, which all of us here would hope that you would vote no.
But they keep saying they don't have any other plans.
They keep saying they don't have plans, but here we have them on audio. And if you watched our pilot episode last week, we talked a little bit about it, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it. But Kansas House Bill 2746. Kansas House Bill 2746. I'm going to say it 3 times. Kansas House Bill 2746. Look it up right now. Read that bill. Understand that bill is as soon as they come into session, January 2023, that will be the first bill introduced to Value Them Both, passed and discussed, and they will vote on completely banning abortion in the state of Kansas. We're going to play that audio now.
Thank you all so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Like you said, my name is Lori Chrisman. I am the regional director in our area. So I have 18 counties that I'm in charge of getting out the vote with, and knocking on doors and making phone calls and doing our grassroots initiative on this. Answer a couple questions real quick. I'll say it out loud here. No, I don't have science, and no, I do not have magnets. So if you want to call the KFL office next week, we should have quite a few coming in. They were supposed to be in this week, but sadly, we live in a different world now.
This pertains to Value Them Both, and either Lori can answer that or Mark over here, but when you you did say something about when this passes, Value Them Both, yes, on August 2, then that will open up the way for trigger bills to pass. Is that right? And people need to know about it. Can somebody explain that?
But we do have one ready. It's HB 2746. So we'll look that up.
You can't file a bill.
Right, they won't be able to.
It's a different number.
Oh, well, it's out there, but it's not voted on or anything yet.
All bills died. They went through. So it has to be in.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's good to know. I didn't know that. So on May 21st, they're done.
May 23rd, they all go.
Are they going to do another one? Or the reintroduce one? After probably after the decision.
If I may real quick, I think the point of the question is that right now, the way it sits, with the state's Supreme Court having hijacked the abortion issue, they have total and complete control of any decisions in regards to it. So until we vote that there's not a guaranteed abortion in our Constitution, we got to vote for this amendment, and then we can begin the laws we already have in the books will come back into place. We'll be able to make further laws, further refinement, with my goal of life starting at conception. Again, without the passages of this amendment, we can't discuss any of those intricacies. We can't do anything. We're paralyzed. So the first step is passing the amendment.
That's exactly right. We have to have this to move any farther anyway. It doesn't even matter the way the decision comes out. It's not going to affect us right now. We have to get this passed. We have to get this on our Constitution. So thank you.
Just insane.
Hey, shout out to whoever caught that clip.
A big time shout out. The people need to hear that clip. House Bill 2746. There it is again. Kansas House Bill 2746. Go find that bill and read it.
I was going to say it's, so Monday, May 23rd, 2022, it died in committee, but then on Tuesday, March 29th, 2022.
Yes. So what that means,
it was introduced.
It was introduced and it died. And the reason that it died is because of the current laws we have on the books that protect abortion as a right. Bodily autonomy is a right in the state of Kansas, and that's why that bill died. That's what spurred value them both, and why we are voting on it on August 2nd. There was a comment made that the bill will have to be renamed and reintroduced to the House Senate. It's there. They can reintroduce it at any time with the same nomenclature, and that's exactly what they said they're going to do in that audio, guys. We are on the verge of having radical extremist politicians telling you what type of health care you can and cannot receive in the state of Kansas. It's absolutely
what are the
ridiculous.
Democrats doing? We knew they wanted it. There have been protesters outside the abortion clinics forever. They killed Dr. Tiller. We've known that this is what they've wanted for a long time. What are Democrats doing? Where is the fight? Where are the ads on this? Where are the educational pieces to inform people that this isn't a vote on abortion? This is a vote on losing the rights to your body.
Yeah.
Everybody loses them.
Tender lungs, no, they cannot change the laws currently on the books. Right now in the state of Kansas, abortions are not legal or not legal. They are illegal after 22 weeks. There have been zero, and we have a graphic of the numbers of how many abortions were last year. There were zero abortions over 22 weeks in the state of Kansas last year, 2020 and in 2019. The majority of abortions that happen are under 9 weeks. So we're talking about abortion pills. We're talking about contraceptives. Yeah. That's what they are looking at banning to shrink our abortion numbers. 98% of the abortions in Kansas or thereabout happen in the first 9 weeks, within the first 9 weeks of pregnancy. You guys. And yes, that everything is against the poor people. But if we bring up the graphic again of the laws that are currently on the books in Kansas, abortion's illegal after 22 weeks. Late-term abortions and abortions based on gender selection are prohibited 100%. Private insurance companies in Kansas only cover abortions where their cases are limited to life endangerment or unless enrollees purchase additional coverage specific for abortions. So if they are using abortion as a birth control method, which I don't agree with personally, they can buy it through their insurance company.
Hold on.
It's not a tax. Go ahead.
That's a ridiculous argument, and I hate it when people bring it up because it doesn't happen. There can be so much vaginal scarring after 4 to 6 abortions that you will never have a child again. It has its own regulation built into it, and that's a fact. And it doesn't get talked about. So it can't be used as birth control. It just can't. It's a gaslighting topic.
Yep. The smackdown. Back to the laws there. You have to have parental consent. And that's a big one for Value Them Both. You already have to have parental consent in the state of Kansas. So Value Them Both is wrong there. The late-term abortions, they're wrong there.
That absolutely doesn't happen. Also, what does late-term abortion mean? First of all, that's not let me be clear. That is not a medical term. That is a political term. And I don't know what it means. It's like after 22 weeks in the 3rd trimester. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Nobody waits till month 8 and says, you know what? I don't want to do this.
I mean, Tim Pool asked that question.
Well,
Tenderloins, there were 0 abortions after the 22-week mark in Kansas last year. There were in total 7,849 abortions in the state of Kansas last year.
Okay, so what I think the thing here is discussing what this means for criminalizing abortion beyond these laws that already exist. So they, much like I'm sure most people have heard about the news story about women who were, they bled out because the doctor or the hospital didn't want to be liable for making the wrong decision. And so that's
they
like
get stuck between. They get stuck between, if I lose my license and go to jail, I can't save any lives. And if I save this life, that might very well be what happens. And, I don't know what the answer is to that because it's an extremely difficult decision. And if they choose to go forward with that not only are they sacrificing future lives that they could save, they're sacrificing their own life. And man, it's hard to say this is what they should do because that's making decisions on somebody's life that shouldn't be made by anybody but them.
Yeah. We should not be giving our legislation power to put it down on the 3rd floor of the Senate building and then sit there and argue a woman's health care. It's erroneous.
And it should be
time, and it should be taxpayer money. And that, go ahead.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. No, get your point.
I would say it should be noted that if this amendment passes, that's what we get to vote on. We won't get to vote on the bills that hit the floor. It's going to be the representatives and senators that we've elected that get to do that. And at least in our area, we have people like John Wheeler representing us, and they say that this is not a democratic country. This is a republic, a country of the republic, meaning that once we vote for him, he serves his will, not ours. He doesn't care how much majority support a bill has. If he's against it, he's voting against it. And that's the politicians we have in office right now. So we won't get a say on abortion after this amendment passes. So I highly suggest people vote no.
I highly suggest people vote no. If we want to reduce the numbers of abortions in Kansas, we need to focus on the family first. We need to change our adoption laws. We need to change our foster care. We need to change health care.
If we want to lower the abortion rate, we need to make sure that abortions are safe, legal. And every time you remove a clinic that provides an abortion for women's health care, abortions go up. So every time they mess with abortion laws, deaths go up.
And that's absolutely right. Black women do die during childbirth the most and have some of the worst health care in this country. It's just been statistically proven. It's not even an argument.
Absolutely.
You're right. They don't even do those studies. We don't have the data on that.
Yeah. And, in the audio, we heard a guy say that he believes life starts at conception. What do we know about a baby being viable before 23 weeks?
Yeah, a baby isn't viable outside. I want to say 21 weeks and 6 days, they die after they're born. If you can get to 22 weeks, there is barely beginning to be brain activity. So there are no pain receptors. Their lungs aren't fully developed. When they're born at 23 weeks and maybe viable, which is pretty rare, like less than half go beyond that point. They're born like their body doesn't produce surfactant, if I'm saying that right. So it's lubrication for the lungs so that they don't collapse when you're breathing. Then of those babies that might like survive the birth process and the next 6 months in the hospital, half of those don't survive after that. There are a number of issues of the quality of life, what it costs to make sure that child has a viable life. So it's hard to really say that it's not scientific to force a woman to have a child before that. Or
yeah. You guys, it's been a great show this week. Before I turn it over for our rollout on this, I want to thank everybody for joining. I want to thank Brian and Tucker in the background for everything they did today. Round of applause for our hosts. It's our first show and lots of jitters there. Zach, what do we got coming in for next week?
Oh boy, next week's going to be a doozy. Like I can't even. Sorry, my camera got all messed up here. You guys have to tune in next week. We're going to revisit one of our pilot episode topics. Troy Unruh, you did not duck out. We're coming for you, buddy. It's not going to be fun.
Coming. It's not going to be fun.
Play the Jaws music.
Actually, it's
cue it up
for us.
We have new information about the case. Can't wait to share you guys. We're going to take a look at GCC and the former college president, Herbert Swender. That was a case that went on, I believe that was back in 2018.
Yeah.
It's been a couple of years. It got to be pretty big, and it just that was about the time that the Garden City Telegram was dying, and so the follow-up never really happened, and I think people deserve to know where because it's not over. There's still people fighting.
Yeah.
So again, thank you everybody for joining tonight. I had a blast. I can't wait to join you next week. Make sure you do the things like subscribe, follow, tweet,
share,
burn a candle, say a prayer, the whole 9 yards.
What's obvious to us with the response that we received to the show is Garden City is missing a massive media opportunity. And so we're here to fill that void. And man, we're going to have so much fun. Tenderlongs 206 from YouTube. I don't know how you found us, but we want to say thank you so much for keeping our chat room live for us tonight. We hope to see you again and everybody else next week. Caitlin?
Yes, sir. Thanks again. Join us right here next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks.
Well, test. Better. We'll take a minute to envision it, in the vision we're ripping from a difference of opinion, inquisitive, isn't it? When the picture in the mirror isn't shit, but give it a minute, fix this image and hit the bricks with the viciousness. But don't play, cause one day you'll be saying, you shoulda, coulda, woulda, but my shit it just wouldn't drop, cause you wouldn't have, but you're so worried, it was your world. When you hit them with the rhymes, they had no words. Just come back to the flip of the tongue fun that you once had and chuck it like a beer and crush that. Go shave your mustache and write it down, cut that, and so much rap again. Oh, I'm getting tired of that. I don't know anymore what they call that. Getting so you know that something's missing. Let's go show them what rap is again. Like taking a step out of your front door for the first time and you want more with the sunshine, but you've been locked away, forgetting you don't care. Listen, it's not part of the mission. Just say what you got to say. Whether it makes sense, just a bunch of gibberish, bit from the hip, slipping so soft, but splitting your lip. You get a grip, cause as good as your shit is, you know it really isn't a big deal. Cause it'll turn heads down too. It's your purpose, round two. But you gotta open your eyes and realize it's right here. To open your mind, you gotta try to fight fear and find a life bright enough to ignite and excite peers. But get their attention, I find. You gotta give them a big boom. You're the fuel, and I got my lighter right here. Oh, I'm getting tired of that. I don't know anymore what they call that. Getting so you know that something's missing. Let's go show 'em what rap is again.